Imagine sitting in just a really small, kind of unremarkable room.
Right, like a standard apartment living room.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Maybe a little dated, but, comfortable enough. And you're watching a couple through a two-way mirror.
Okay.
And they're having a conversation about something just completely mundane. I mean, maybe it's whose turn it is to do the dishes or how to handle the in-laws for the upcoming holidays.
Oh, yeah, the classic arguments.
Right. So it starts as this minor disagreement. But as you watch them interact, you're not just listening to their words. You're looking at, like, the micro-expressions on their faces. You're monitoring the data from these heart rate sensors that are strapped to their chests. And after just a few minutes of this observation, you write down a simple yes or no on a piece of paper.
Just yes or no.
Just yes or no.
Okay.
And with that single word, you are predicting with over 90% accuracy whether that couple will eventually divorce or break up.
I mean, it sounds like a magic trick or, some kind of dystopian science fiction.
It really does.
But that scenario is actually very real.
It's pure observable science. And today we are walking right into that laboratory to explore how they actually pull off that prediction. We're looking at the legendary Love Lab research, which was spearheaded by Gottman back in the early 90s, like 1992 and 1993, alongside some just really fascinating modern clinical work from 2019 by a researcher named Beanie and his team.
Yeah, they've spent decades mapping this out.
They really have.
Yeah.
And they mapped out what Gottman famously coined the 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, which are these 4 highly specific communication habits that serve as massive, blinking warning signs of relationship doom.
And we should probably clarify up front that we aren't talking about, your run-of-the-mill bad moods or the occasional bickering over folding the laundry.
Right, because every couple argues.
Exactly. Every couple argues. What these researchers isolated were deeply ingrained microscopic patterns of interaction. Like, the data shows that it's not the mere fact that couples fight that predicts a breakup.
Okay, so what is it?
It's the mechanics of how they fight. It's the hidden biological and psychological cascades that happen during those conflicts.
But the goal of this deep dive isn't just to give you a gloomy checklist to spot a failing relationship. I mean, though you will definitely be able to do that by the end of this.
Yeah, unfortunately you will.
The real mission is to hand you the precise, rigorously tested antidotes. We want to look at the mechanics of how to actually save a relationship when these horsemen show up. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
To figure out how to pull a relationship back from the brink, we first need to identify the single most lethal behavior that destroys it. We're moving from that incredible 90% prediction rate directly into the number 1 culprit.
Yeah, and of the 4 horsemen, there is one that stands, head and shoulders above the rest in its destructive power.
And is that contempt, right?
That horseman is contempt. But to really grasp why contempt is so radioactive, we kind of have to look at the first horseman, which is criticism, and see how contempt morphs out of it.
That distinction is so crucial because people use criticism and contempt interchangeably all the time. I know I used to.
They do, yeah. And psychologically, they function completely differently. Criticism is essentially an attack on a partner's character.
Okay.
So if you're frustrated that the trash wasn't taken out, a complaint targets the behavior, right? Like, I am frustrated the trash is still inside.
Right, it's about the trash.
Exactly. But criticism targets the person. It sounds like, you are so lazy you never do what you say you're going to do. It takes a specific issue and makes it global. It makes it about a fundamental flaw in who the person is.
I see. So criticism is bad. It puts someone on the defensive.
Definitely.
But contempt is a whole different animal. Let's talk about how to separate those two. I always think of it like this. Criticism is telling someone they're a bad driver.
Okay, yeah.
But contempt is rolling your eyes and sarcastically saying, of course you missed the exit. You can't do anything right. I mean, it's the difference between a paper cut and a poisoned blade.
That is a perfect analogy. The poisoned blade. Contempt goes a dangerous step further because it introduces a power dynamic.
A power dynamic? How so?
Well, when a partner uses contempt, they aren't just attacking character. They're assuming a position of moral superiority.
Wow.
And the 2019 clinical studies by Beanie really drill down into the behavioral markers here. Contempt shows up as eye-rolling, heavy sarcasm, name-calling, mimicking, and mocking. It's fundamentally driven by disgust.
It's the sneer.
Yes, exactly. It's the sneer. It's looking down your nose at the person you're supposed to love. And you know, evolutionary psychology tells us that disgust is a uniquely powerful emotion.
Why is that?
Because for our ancestors, being the object of disgust meant you were diseased or about to be cast out of the tribe, which literally meant death.
Oh, wow. So it triggers a survival fear.
It does. So when a partner shows disgust toward you, it registers in the brain as profound existential rejection. That's why contempt is the single greatest predictor of relationship dissolution. It just dismantles the immune system of the partnership.
What's fascinating here is how we actually combat that acid rain. Because you can't just command someone, hey, stop being contemptuous. The feeling of disgust has usually been building for a long time.
Right. It doesn't just happen overnight.
Exactly. The research points to a very specific proactive antidote, and it relies on a concept called the emotional bank account.
The emotional bank account. Yes. Let's break down the mechanics of this, because I think people assume saving a relationship means grand gestures, like a surprise vacation to Paris.
Oh, totally, like the big movie moments.
Exactly. But the data tells a completely different story. The grand gestures barely move the needle.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The idea of the emotional bank account is that couples must proactively build a positive balance of interpersonal connection through tiny, mundane, daily interactions.
So not Paris.
Not Paris. You make deposits into this account by regularly responding favorably to your partner's bids for emotional connection.
Okay, let's define a bid, because it's usually incredibly subtle, isn't it? Have you ever caught yourself rolling your eyes during a disagreement? That's what we want to avoid by noticing these bids.
Yeah, bids are extremely subtle. A bid might be your partner pointing out the window and saying, look at that weird bird, or sighing heavily while looking at their phone.
Just a sigh.
Just a sigh. They are asking you to engage. If you look up, smile, and say, oh yeah, what kind of bird is that?
Yeah.
You just made a deposit. You validated their attempt to connect.
And if you don't?
Well, if you ignore them or keep staring at your laptop and say, I'm trying to work, you not only missed the opportunity for a deposit, you actually made a withdrawal.
And neurologically, those tiny deposits build a habit of positive expectation. So we go back to our bridge analogy. Every time you acknowledge the weird bird or ask about their day, you are literally reinforcing the steel cables.
Yes, exactly. You're building a massive reserve of structural integrity.
So when the heavy truck of a real disagreement drives over the bridge, the foundation can handle it.
That is the core of it. But of course, even with a fortress of an emotional bank account, we still have to deal with the fact that couples will legitimate grievances exist.
Right. You can't just ignore problems.
No, you can't. And if we don't get those negative feelings out, they fester and fuel that exact contempt we are trying to avoid.
Which brings us to the next massive challenge. If we have to build this bridge, how do we handle the traffic? Like, how do you express a legitimate complaint to your partner without triggering a toxic spiral?
That's the million-dollar question.
And this leads us to the mechanics of criticism and its automatic, deeply human response defensiveness. Let's start with how to air a grievance without dropping a bomb on the bridge. The antidote to criticism is what the research terms a gentle startup.
A gentle startup. Yeah, it requires complaining without blame. And the mechanical formula here is utilizing I statements instead of you statements. You focus entirely on your own internal state and a specific actionable need.
So instead of the classic you statement like, you always leave the kitchen a disaster, you literally do not care about my time.
Right. That statement is full of blame and global character assassination. The amygdala, the threat detection center in your partner's brain instantly lights up when it hears that.
It's an attack.
Exactly. The gentle startup bypasses that threat response. It becomes an I statement, like, I feel really overwhelmed when I come into a messy kitchen in the morning. I need us to make sure the counters are wiped down before we go to sleep.
The shift is remarkable. I mean, you are addressing the exact same problem in the messy kitchen, but you haven't attacked their character. You just stated your own reality.
It changes the whole dynamic.
However, let's be realistic about human nature. Even if you deliver the most perfectly crafted, gentle startup in the history of therapy, what usually happens, the natural human reaction to almost any complaint is the third horseman, defensiveness.
Oh, it is entirely natural. Defensiveness is an ego protection mechanism. When we feel accused, we experience cognitive dissonance. We think of ourselves as good partners, so hearing that we caused our partner pain creates psychological discomfort.
So we fight back to relieve that discomfort.
Exactly. To relieve that discomfort, the ego claims victimhood to deflect blame. It's a way of saying, the problem isn't me, it's actually you. You complain about the kitchen, And the defensive response is, well, I was too busy paying the bills that you forgot to handle.
Deflection and counterattack. I mean, it's almost a reflex.
It is a reflex, and the research notes that the only effective way to short-circuit defensiveness is to take responsibility. You have to break the cycle by owning your part of the issue, even if it's just a tiny fraction of the conflict.
Which signals you're not a threat.
Yes, that immediately signals to the other person that you aren't an enemy, which de-escalates the tension.
But wait, I have to stop you there
Uh,
and push back on this, because this is where so many people just throw their hands up. What if your partner is actually factually 100% wrong about the situation?
that's a fair point.
Right. Taking responsibility in that moment feels like rolling over and losing the argument. If I didn't do the thing they're accusing me of, how on earth do I take responsibility for it?
This raises an important question, and it's the exact hurdle that stalls most couples. Taking responsibility does not mean admitting to a factual event that didn't happen.
Okay, then what does it mean?
It means looking for the kernel of truth in your partner's emotional experience and validating their reality. You are taking responsibility for the dynamic or for the feelings generated, not necessarily the specific event.
How does that actually sound in practice? Let's say your partner says, you never listen to me when I talk about my day, and you know for a fact that you listened to them vent for an hour just yesterday.
Well, if you bring up yesterday, you are being defensive. You are litigating facts instead of addressing emotions.
Right, you're arguing the timeline.
Exactly. Taking a tiny fraction of responsibility sounds like this. You know, I was distracted on my phone when you walked in just now. I can see why that made you feel unheard in this moment.
Oh, wow, that's brilliant. You aren't admitting to the global accusation of never listening. You are just owning the 5 seconds where you actually were looking at your phone.
You took responsibility for maybe 1% of the argument, but that 1% acts as a pressure release valve. It validates their emotional reality, which drops their defenses, and it shifts the conversation from me versus you to us versus the problem.
That is so practical. But let's look at the worst case scenario. Say the gentle startup fails.
Yeah.
We get tired, we mess up, the argument escalates, the defenses go up, the contempt starts leaking in, and suddenly your partner just completely shuts down.
Yeah.
They cross their arms, they stare at the floor, they literally stop responding to you. It looks like the ultimate stubbornness. It feels like they are punishing you with silence.
It absolutely feels like punishment. And this is the fourth and final Horseman stonewalling. It is incredibly agonizing to be on the receiving end of it.
It's the worst.
But the biological data from Gottman's lab tells us a completely different story about what is actually happening inside the body of the person who is stonewalling. It isn't stubbornness at all. It is pure physiology.
This is the part of the research that absolutely blew my mind. When someone is stonewalling withdrawing and becoming totally unresponsive, it is typically the result of physiological flooding.
Yes. Flooding is a massive evolutionary biological event. During a heated argument, the body perceives a threat. The brain doesn't easily distinguish between the emotional threat of a screaming partner and the physical threat of a predator in the wild.
That's crazy to think about.
It is. The fight-or-flight system kicks into overdrive. The heart rate skyrockets, often well over 100 beats per minute.
Just from talking?
It's from arguing. Adrenaline and cortisol dump into the bloodstream. Blood literally shunts away from the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, creative problem solving, and empathy.
So it goes offline.
It goes offline. The blood goes to the limbs to prepare the body to run away or fight for its life.
Think about the last time you argued about something silly, like loading the dishwasher, and suddenly you felt your chest tighten and your face get hot. That wasn't just you being annoyed. That was your body preparing for combat.
Exactly.
And when a person is flooded like that, their physiological state is so altered that rational communication literally becomes impossible. The empathy centers are offline.
They aren't ignoring you because they want to win the argument. They are ignoring you because their biological system is in total systemic overload. And this is vital. When someone is flooded and stonewalling, pursuing them and forcing them to keep talking is the absolute worst possible reaction.
Let's think of it like an overheating car engine. The radiator is blown, smoke is pouring out from under the hood. You can't just keep your foot on the gas and yell at the car to drive faster.
No, that won't work.
If you force an overheated engine to keep running, you aren't going to get to your destination. You are going to permanently crack the engine block. You literally have to pull over, turn it off, and let it cool down before it can function again.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, recognizing this biological reality completely reframes how we view a partner walking away from an argument. When they say, I can't talk about this right now and leave the room. It is not an insult.
It feels like one, but it's not.
It's not. It is a biological necessity. It is an unconscious mechanism to protect the relationship from the severe damage that happens when people fight while flooded.
Which means the strict, research-backed antidote to stonewalling is a mandatory timeout for self-soothing. You have to stop the conversation. And the research is very specific about the time frame, right? It requires at least 20 minutes.
The 20-minute rule is non-negotiable. It takes the human cardiovascular system at least that long to fully metabolize the adrenaline and cortisol out of the bloodstream and return to a baseline resting state.
So a quick breather won't cut it.
No, taking a 5-minute breather won't do it. You have to step away and do something completely distracting. Read a magazine, take a walk, focus on your breathing.
What if you just sit there and think about the argument?
That's the trap. Crucially, you cannot spend those 20 minutes stewing and rehearsing what you're going to say next, or you'll just keep the adrenaline pumping.
Okay, so you take your 20-minute break, the flooding has subsided, the adrenaline has metabolized, the heart rate is back to normal, the empathy centers in the brain are back online.
You're ready to engage again.
Right. You walk back into the living room to resume the conversation. How do successful couples keep the argument from instantly combusting again? Because they do argue. They don't just magically agree on everything.
No, they definitely don't. The 1993 data shows that the master couples argue just as frequently as the couples who end up divorced.
Wait, really? Just as frequently?
Just as frequently. The difference is not the absence of conflict. The difference is the successful deployment of what the researchers call repair attempts.
Repair attempts. These are the brakes on the argument.
Precisely. A repair attempt is any statement or action aimed at decreasing the tension during a heated exchange. It could be saying, "Let's take a breath." It could be a self-deprecating joke to break the ice.
Just anything to lower the temperature.
Yeah, it could be reaching out and touching the other person's arm, or simply saying, "I'm sorry I raised my voice just now. Let's start over."
But wait, I've seen this go terribly wrong in real life. Yeah. Someone tries to make a joke or apologize during a fight, and it just makes the other person even more furious. Like they feel mocked or patronized. Why do repair attempts work brilliantly for some couples and completely explode in the faces of others?
That is the million-dollar question that ties all of Gottman's research together. The success of a repair attempt comes down to a psychological state called positive sentiment override.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Positive sentiment override is essentially a cognitive filter. It's a set of rose-colored glasses. Remember that emotional bank account we built up with the tiny daily deposits?
Right, acknowledging the weird bird.
Yes, the weird bird. If that account is full, if there is a deep history of small positive connections and mutual respect, the partner will view even a clumsy, poorly timed repair attempt positively. They will assume good intentions. They will accept the olive branch.
They give you the benefit of the doubt because the structural integrity of the bridge is solid.
Yes. But if the relationship is distressed, if the emotional bank account is overdrawn and contempt has been allowed to fester, the couple falls into negative sentiment override.
And what happens then?
In that state, negative perceptions color everything. Even a perfectly phrased, deeply sincere apology will be viewed with suspicion and hostility. The partner will think, "You're just saying that to manipulate me." The repair attempt will fail.
So what does this all mean? When you really look at the mechanics, this means the success of your apology today actually depends more on the history of your relationship than the quality of the apology itself.
That is exactly what the data proves. The words you use in the heat of the moment matter, of course, but the broader context of the relationship dictates how those words are processed by your partner's brain. You can't just deploy a repair attempt like a cheat code if you haven't put in the mundane daily work to build the emotional bank account beforehand.
That reframes the entire concept of relationship maintenance. You don't just work on a relationship when it's broken. You work on it when things are fine, precisely so you have the built-in resilience to fix it when it inevitably breaks down.
Exactly. It's preventative maintenance.
This has been such a fascinating journey through the human mind. We've gone from predicting doom with 90% accuracy to finding the exact mechanistic tools for salvation. Let's distill this deep dive into 3 quick, actionable takeaways for you to use in your own life today.
Okay, number 1.
Number 1, call a genuine timeout. Remember the evolutionary biology of flooding. If your heart is racing and you can't think straight, enforce that 20-minute rule. Pull the car over and let the engine cool down.
Number 2, complain, don't criticize. When you need to address an issue, use a gentle startup. Focus on your own internal feelings and a specific need using an I statement. Bypass their threat detection system rather than attacking their inherent character with a you statement. And when they complain to you, short-circuit defensiveness by taking 1% of the responsibility.
And number 3, deposit small things often. This is your ultimate defense mechanism against contempt. Express daily gratitude, fondness, and admiration to fund that emotional bank account. When your partner points out the weird bird out the window, look at it. Validate the tiny bits for connection.
Those micro deposits are the literal foundation that keeps the bridge standing during a storm.
I want to leave you with a final, lingering idea to mull over based on this concept of positive sentiment override. Think about this. If the success of a repair attempt during a massive fight relies almost entirely on having a full emotional bank account,
Yeah.
does that mean the actual winner of a fight is decided before the argument even begins? It suggests that the real heavy lifting work of conflict resolution doesn't happen during a screaming match at midnight. The real work happens in the quiet, mundane moments of a Tuesday afternoon when you simply choose not to ignore your partner's small bid for your attention.
It is a profound shift in perspective. It means every small interaction matters.
It really does. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the science of relationships. Take these tools, test them out, start building up that bank account, and we will see you next time.